Good afternoon. Welcome to an exciting policy seminar at IFPRI. I'm Joachim von Braun. I, in a moment, will introduce our distinguished panelists. Smart input subsidies and sustainable agricultural development. Smart subsidies, an oxymoron. Let's see. We will mainly talk about input subsidies related to fertilizer. Fertilizer policies have gone through a very bumpy process over the last 20 years. Structural adjustment, out with government distribution of fertilizer. Trust the private sector. And the fertilizer didn't come to many countries. And we will hear more of such stories, what has happened and where are we now. But up front, I'm afraid we have to recognize fertilizer use rates, where they are mostly needed in Africa, are still far below economic efficiency levels. Why? And what to do? And that will be one of the questions which we expect our panelists to answer. And if they don't do so, while presenting for 10 minutes each, we will ask them again. We will have as opening speaker Dr. Balu Bamb. He's program leader for the Policy, Trade and Markets program at the International Fertilizer Development Center, IFDC. Balu is really an expert on these issues, has worked in many countries in Africa and in Asia. And Balu, we will ask you in a moment to start the debate. Nick Meinert is a senior research fellow at IFPRI in the Markets, Trade and Institutions Division. Nick has a long-standing experience in input and output markets. And Nick Meinert and Todd Benson have just tabled this very interesting issue brief on fertilizer subsidies in Africa. Are vouchers the answer? Question mark. Hot from the press today released. Derek Byerly, a member of the CGIAR Science Council, agricultural economist, a leading economic voice in the CGIAR for many years at CIMMET and elsewhere, and then the Rural Strategy Advisor in the Agriculture and Rural Development Department of the World Bank and lead author of the World Bank's Development Report on Agriculture recently. Derek, thank you for coming. And closing will be Karen Brooks, closing the statements from the panel. Karen is the Sector Manager for Agriculture and Rural Development, Africa region of the World Bank, and she was a professor in agricultural economics at the University of Minnesota before that. Karen has a distinguished career, not only behind but before her. Karen has a long-standing experience in Eastern Europe. And an understanding of economies in transition. I think I'd be interested, Karen, if maybe in the discussion period you could touch a bit on the institutional difficulties to get the input markets moving and the role of the state and the private sector. I'm sure will be addressed by you. Some of the colleagues have PowerPoints. Very interesting PowerPoints, maybe too many PowerPoints. You are permitted to skip a few. You are not permitted to overrun the 10 minutes. I got these very clear directives from some of my colleagues, because this audience is hungry to discuss with you. Please. And the discussion opener will be Cacio Asensio Ochere. Cacio is here in the first line, director of IFPRI's division for knowledge, innovation, and capacity strengthening based in Addis Ababa. Cacio, you will be very brief in the discussion openings as well. Balu, you have the floor. Thank you for coming, and we want to not only close on time, but we want to close with some clear messages and conclusions. And if we don't have them, then we want to have clear messages and conclusions for further research needs on the open issues. Balu.